Hey everybody, happy Martin Luther King Day. Welcome to Bro Man with an Opinion podcast. I apologize for the space between episodes. I was planning on doing a whole lot more, and I don't know what I caught, but it just kicked my ass. Um, and that happened once before. I had a bad sinus infection, but this really wasn't. I'm not quite sure what this was. To be honest, I did not go to the. Well, I did go to urgent care, um, and they kind of just thought I had something viral. They really couldn't give me a definitive answer. I mean, I thought it was a sinus infection, but I wasn't really feeling the same symptoms of that. I felt very drained. I had a sore throat, a pounding headache that just did not want to go away. And the last time I had something like that, it was COVID, but they said this is not COVID. So I'm like, okay. So I don't know what it was, but I was just like down and out, and it just took a while for me to get my energy back. And as much as I wanted to come upstairs and do a recording, I'm just like, I just don't really have it in me right now. And I just kind of just let it just keep, you know, going by the wayside. But I'm like, all right, I got to get back because I want to start doing I want to get really start getting this ball rolling with this channel because I really like it. I enjoy it. Bro Man with an Opinion. Um, so I will hope that you guys will subscribe, give me your opinions, and give me your responses and everything. So again, my apologies for the late delay, but what not a better time to come back when we just had the swearing in of the 47th president. So again, for those of you who are brand new, you guys can go into to the past episodes to see my intro pod. Um, I am a independent, so there may be times where you think some may say, "Oh my God, he's a Trump lover." No, I'm trying to call balls and strikes, in my view, because sometimes you have to look past the nonsense to see certain things, and sometimes even if the person you don't like, sometimes you got to give them the credit on things that they deserve. And then there might be some of you who might say, "Oh my God, he's a Trump hater," and no, I'm not a Trump hater either. I just there's things that he's going to be criticized on. He should be criticized on. I am going to get into some of that. Not in this particular episode. I'm going to do another one right after this about the Biden pardons, and I'm going to explain why it doesn't bother me. And the one thing is that I will never tell you how to feel. So I'm not going to say, "Oh well, you guys should be upset about it, or you guys should be happy about it." I'm never going to do that. I'm just giving. Again, it's called Bro Man with an Opinion. I'm just giving my opinion on it, not telling you how to feel, and you are more than welcome to leave your comments and tell me how you feel. Again, I always ask, especially when we do political episodes on here, because this is going to be a mix of everything, pop culture, sports, and everything. I just ask that you please be respectful. That's all I ask. So I always watch the inaugurations. The first one I watched was Obama. When Bush was doing his second one, I was just getting out of high school. Well, I was going to be out of high school that year, um, and I do remember, he wasn't my history teacher, but he was covering. And in high school, I remember he was saying, it's important that you guys should watch, the inaugurations. It's historic, and it's just something that you should do. And again, I believe I was in school that day. I don't think it landed on Martin Luther King like it did this year, but Obama was the first one that I watched, and then ever since then I always watched them. I watched Trump's first one, I watched Biden, and I will watch every other inauguration. And if I happen to have to work that day, I'll record it. But somehow I'm not quite sure. Each inauguration I was off. I was able to watch them. So anyway, um, I thought it was a nice ceremony considering the fact that it was indoors and not outside. I know Carrie Underwood got a lot of criticism for going to sing at the inauguration, and I don't think it's fair that she got the criticism. I mean, I'm not a huge Carrie Underwood fan. I do like some of her songs, but it's not like I'm a huge fan, and it disturbed me that she did it. I mean, listen, you're asked to go to the inauguration. I mean, whether or not it's somebody you like or dislike, it shouldn't matter. I mean, for her, I'm sure she thought it was a great honor to be asked, and she did it, and she did a great job. I mean, it was a little awkward to begin it because you could clearly see she's waiting for the music to start, and you get like a little snippet, and then it stopped. And then I read her lips because whoever walked up in the camera frame, you read her lips, and she's like, "I could just sing," and I'm like, "That's right, just let it go." Because she's like, "You know what? I don't need the music. This just taking too long. I don't need the music. Let's get it going." And she did, and I thought she did a great job. And it's unfair that she was getting attacked for doing it again. Just because somebody you don't like a certain person doesn't mean somebody else, can't do something. And it's a shame that she received the criticism for doing it. Yeah, you may not have done it, but she wanted to. Everybody has their reasons for doing something. Just like everybody who voted for Trump, everybody thinks that they're racist and they're anti LGBT and anti immigrant, all this stuff. And as we can see, and we pretty much know why Trump won this election. Trump won because people were unhappy with the economy and with the all the immigration that was coming in illegally. People were upset about it. And you can't fault people for being upset about it. And I am all for helping people. But I was pissed off about it because of how they were taking care of the migrants. And it's like, hello, you have your own people you have to take care of. And I can just tell you from a personal experience that on the street that my mother lives on, floods. Now, when she bought the house, which would be 25 years ago in October, she had no idea that this area flooded. Um, and back then, nobody was looking at floodplain. Nobody was looking at that stuff. And nobody said anything to her that the street flooded. And, of course, when we had the first flood here, we found out. But that didn't happen until 11 years after she bought the house, is when the first time we had a flood, which was Hurricane Irene, and when the floodwaters came in the house and we had to be evacuated out. I do remember, I think maybe 2 years after I graduated high school, there was a little bit of water in the street, but it was nothing major. But that major flood was in 2011, and nobody said anything. And then we found out that it flooded once before, like back in '92 or something like that. So people probably thought it was a freak thing; it wasn't going to happen, and never found out. And then after that, it was 10 years before there was another flood that all the homes in my mother's blocks got damaged. So and new neighbors had moved in, and they've all said the same thing. Nobody told us that it floods here. Nobody told us. And um, the the homeowners on the block had to apply for a FEMA grant to help uplift the homes. And that we did that application in 2022. At the beginning, it was submitted in January 2022. It did not get approved until May of last year. After Memorial Day, it finally got approved. So you're giving all this money to migrants, but you have people here, and my mother's neighbor was a pit bull trying to get information, trying to figure out. I mean, she tried to contact Schumer's office, Gillibrand's office. We had Bowman come to the block at one point, and he didn't do shit except pull fire alarms, so he was no help. Stewart, Andrew Stewart cousin. I mean, my neighbor, well, I should say my mother's neighbor, tried very hard to get the information to figure out why this is taking so long. But then, everybody is sitting here watching all the migrants come in, and at the snap of a finger, get all these services, medical services, food services, shelters, get everything. And now you have people here who can't even live in their homes, still have to pay the mortgage, by the way, who are not living in their home because their home is completely gutted. And the rule is that you cannot do any work to the house until the the grant was approved. So there was a person on my mother's block, because her house sits on a lower level. Her entire first floor was completely flooded, so her entire first floor is gutted, and I believe she might still be with her daughter right now. So, yeah, there is some outrage that you're taking care of people who are coming to the country illegally, but then you have people here who are still hurting. I could tell you right now, the train incident with the toxins in what was it, Palisades, Ohio. I'm sure they're still going through it, and I'm sure they're still waiting for some sort of assistance. The tornadoes that hit the middle of the country earlier last year, I'm sure they're still waiting for some services. And now, I'm sure people in North Carolina, every time I see a natural disaster, and especially now with the walk, I just said this to a friend um, who's here in Connecticut. He's not being affected by the wildfire. But thinking about what's going on in California right now, the red tape that they're gonna have to go through. Now they might be a little lucky now because Trump is there, and if Trump is really gonna try to deregulate and try to get rid of some of the nonsense, then they may not be, and they may not have the struggles that my mother and other people have. But every time there's a natural disaster, I always say these people have no idea what they're about to go through. You think dealing with the insurance companies is difficult, and sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but it's dealing with the federal government and dealing with FEMA and any kind of grants or specialty programs that they have that will help you recover the length of time that you're going to have to wait. And it's going to be years before those people are back to normal. And part of it's going to be dealing with the red tape bullshit. Again, the people on my mother's block applied for that FEMA grant. We submitted everything in January of 2022. It did not get approved until May of 2024. And now work for the home to be uplifted is not expected to happen until the fall of 2025. And all this work has to be done by 2026. So my mother and neighbors, the last time they slept in their home was the night before the flood happened in 2021. So all of 22, all of 23, all of 24, and now all of 25, nobody has slept in their home. And all of it was because of the wait to find out whether or not the grant was going to be approved to uplift the homes. Ridiculously slow. And when we are watching on TV that people are struggling, and then people see it by the busloads that they're coming into New York, they're coming into Chicago, and we're making these makeshift shelters with comfortable chairs and flat screen TVs and a gourmet chef and Xboxes and PlayStations, that's going to piss off a lot of people. And Trump knew how to tap into that. It cannot be a surprise to people why Trump won. It was not to me. The only thing that I was surprised about was that the poll suggested that the outcomes would be a lot closer than what it was. That's what surprised me. And the other thing that was surprising was that Harris did not win any of the swing states. That was the other surprising thing to me. But I've talked to friends and coworkers, and we all said, we all talk, who do you think is going to win? And my answer never changed. I said, I think Trump has the edge because of the immigration and the economy issue. I think he has the edge. And some people agreed, and some people was like, no, Harris has got it. Harris has got it. There's no way they're going to put a convicted felon in. And that's the other thing with the convicted felon thing. When you say convicted felon, you're going to think that this person killed somebody, sold drugs, did something really bad. Okay? This was all about business records. Okay? So I kind of laugh when they say he's a 34, 34 count convicted felon. I kind of laugh at that because I'm like, okay, this is not that he was charged with aggravated assault. He wasn't charged with or felony assault. He wasn't charged with some kind of gun charge. He wasn't charged with trying to kill somebody. He was charged because he was trying to pretty much hide the money that he paid off a freaking porn star. That's what it all comes down to. And I mean, come on. He tried to hide paying a porn star. Is that really something to tie the courts up with? How many men have done something that their wives are going to be pissed off about and will try to hide it. I did not see that as a big deal. Now, listen, I do think some of these cases Trump did bring on himself. The documents case, to me, he brought that on himself. The January 6th stuff, to me, he brought that on himself. And what was the other thing that he was doing? There was another one. Oh, and then he trying to overturn the results. Because here's my thing with that. If the Democrats cheated and stole the election, don't you think they would have stole everything and try to make Biden's life a lot easier? So if I remember correctly, when Biden went into office, I believe they had flipped the Senate. So they had the Senate and the White House, but the Republicans still held on to the House, if I remember correctly. Because I think Trump had the White House, but he didn't have the Senate or the House. But then it flipped later for the House. Yes. Okay. But they had a thin majority. And I believe the Senate had a thin majority as well. If the Democrats were going to steal, don't you think they would have gave themselves this huge majority where it's been, oh, we don't need Republicans? So that's the kind of thing that kind of shocks me when I hear people say, oh, they stole the election. They're buying into this whole thing that the election was stolen. Because I'm like, if you're going to cheat to win, you're going to cheat to take everything, not just some of it. Or still, well, we're going to steal this, but, let's still make Biden's life a little difficult and not give us as many, seats as possible where we don't have to worry about having, thin majorities and that we don't have to count on 5 or 6 Republicans. You know what I mean? So that's the part that's ridiculous to me. Because no, I do not believe that the 2020 election was stolen. I do not believe any of that. I think it's nonsense. And it was just the fact that he was being a sore loser that he lost. That's it. So those 3 cases I think he brought about himself. The hush money stuff, I'm sorry, I thought that was bullshit. And I will say, on that part, I did feel like the Dems were trying to get something on him in that particular scenario because it was just so ridiculous that, that this was even a story. Because anybody's going to fucking try to do that to hide something. So that part, yes, I felt like they were just trying to, okay, we just got to find something to make something stick with this guy. But then, you had January 6th, you had the election, you had the document stuff. So those 3, I think he brought himself, but the other ones, the other one I thought was nonsense. But going through all that, you cannot say that he is the true comeback kid. I mean, he came back from after January 6th, everybody thought that this man was dead in the water, political career was over, he was exiled to Mar-a-Lago, never to be seen or heard from again. Well, maybe not be seen, but, he was still going to be chirping. I mean, McConnell had pretty much turned on him. I shouldn't say turned on him, but maybe saw the light, like, okay, this has gone too far. Lindsey Graham. And then what happened? The whole McCarthy thing happened. He's getting expelled. And then Mike Johnson goes down. Was it Mike Johnson or was it McCarthy? I think it was Mike Johnson that went down there and sort of brought him back into the... Or was it McCarthy? I forget. One of them brought him back into the fold. And it just took off. And yeah, Biden's shitty handling of things helped. It's funny. People say that Bush gave us Obama, and then people will say that Obama gave us Trump. And then you'll say, well, Trump gave us Biden, and now Biden gave us Trump back because of just how he handled things. And I remember when he first won, and I worked with somebody who was so upset that Biden won. And I turned to him and said, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told my father when Trump won. Give the man a chance. Biden has had his chance and resoundingly has been rejected, which is why Harris lost, because Harris wasn't going to change anything. She said it. I wouldn't change anything. So then why the hell should we put you in if you're not going to change anything? Here's another guy who's telling us, yeah, your grocery prices are too damn high. All these migrants are coming in and they're getting all the services that you guys should be getting. The world is pretty much on fire because these wars are breaking out now. And when there's a natural disaster, your president fumbles the ball. And when people are telling you that they're hurting, your response is, the numbers show that things are getting better, you're okay. And that's not a winning message. When somebody tells you that they are hurting, and you're pretty much telling them it's all in your head, that is not a winning message. And I can give a great example. It's going on it'll be 2 years next month when I left my job in the city. And the reason I left was because I wanted more money, because I felt I deserved more money. Now, some are going to say, well, nobody deserves anything. I did everything that was asked of me. I worked so many late nights, worked so many weekends. There were times that I literally was up 24 hours because by the time I finished the work, trying to do it at the office, bring it back home, by the time I was done, I was going to get up anyway to go to work, so it didn't even make sense. So I would just stay up, doing the job of more than one person, but making the salary of one. I felt like I had done everything that was asked of me. And I'm like, okay, now it's my time to start getting a little something, something. Never asked for a raise, even when I was unhappy with them, never said anything about it. But this time I'm like, nope, I'm going to say something, because I was expecting this time that, okay, my boss is seeing what I'm doing. I'm going to get the props that I deserve. Now, mind you, being in accounting, I was able to see everybody else's pay. So when I was seeing people who they would criticize and say sucked were getting these gigantic increases, like, well, wait a minute. The guy who's doing all this shit, who you claim to really like, and can clearly handle things because you're dumping all this shit on me, you're not giving me the increases. You're giving it to these people who you say suck and you want to get rid of anyway. So I said something, and to make a long story short, my boss said to me, "You were fine." She tried to give me a bunch of lame reasons why I couldn't get it, and then said, "You're fine where you are." Clearly, I disagreed with that, and I left, and I went someplace that gave me the money that I wanted, and that's what happens. And I'm sorry, that's why Biden lost this. That's why today was the Donald Trump inauguration, not a Joe Biden inauguration, because Biden did not listen. And, there will be some who say, well, he took too long to drop out. Yes, when Biden first ran, he said he was going to be a transitional, president. And then, he tried to backtrack his way out of it. And even if he stayed in, Biden wasn't going to win. There was no chance of Biden winning. To tell you the truth, it might have been a bigger trouncing if Biden stayed in. Biden asked for that debate, and he got his ass kicked in that debate. And, I understand why Biden wanted to stay in, because I'm being told that I can't do something, but I think I can. We all have that in our family with our grandfathers or our fathers, who are starting to get older, who are older and want to do, my grandfather thought he could still drive, but he couldn't. But he thought he could, but he couldn't. And we weren't sure if, his mind would just drift off, and he was like colorblind, because he was not noticing when those lights were red. Nobody got hurt. There's no accidents. There were people in the car to shout, "Brake!" But he couldn't drive anymore. But he thought he could do it. And the more we told him that he couldn't, the more he was like, no, I can, and more to determine to show us that he could, but he couldn't. So, we all have, we can all understand his mindset in that. But to me, there was nobody that was going to beat Trump unless, and there was one way I said it could have happened, was or what should have happened was that somebody on Harris's team, if it wasn't Harris's campaign manager, if it wasn't Harris herself, somebody on Harris's behalf had to go into the Oval Office and sit Joe down and say, listen, Joe, people ain't happy. Country ain't happy with the way you done handle shit. And Harris needs to throw your ass under the bus. She needs to separate herself from you. So you know what? She needs to criticize you and she needs to throw you under the bus. And either you have to get on board with that or you just have to get your feelings hurt. Simple as that. You get on board or you don't, but she needs to separate from you. But Harris chose to be loyal. But even if Harris wasn't the one, if it was Pete Buttigieg or some other Democrat who stepped in after Biden stepped out, the problem was nobody was going to break from Biden. And that's what needed to be done. That's what needed to be done. You needed to say, you know what, we did some policies, but now we're seeing maybe some of those policies need to be tweaked. That was probably a mistake. But what she should have said, listen, I'm the VP, okay? The president does this. I support those decisions. But she put herself in the room. I was in the room. I was at the table when these decisions were made. So now, yes, does that make it difficult for you to try to break? Yeah, but you're going to have to figure out a way to do that because being a loyal soldier was not going to work. And that's why we had the Trump inauguration. And again, I thought it was a nice ceremony. To tell you the truth, I really think they should probably keep it more indoors. It just seemed better to me indoors, maybe because it was more intimate. I don't know, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea that that's where it should be done, but that's not what's going to happen, unless it's going to be a really cold day again in 2028, or 29, because the inauguration is going to be in 29. But I know also people are up in arms about all the CEOs who were there and that the money that they paid to the inauguration. And again, that does not bother me. Now, that could be because, I'm a capitalist and, as a head, I mean, not me, but, if you're a head of a multi-billion-dollar business, I was always taught, because I went to business school, I was always taught the job of the government is to serve the people. The job of a CEO is to serve its shareholders. Yes, there was some talk about social responsibility, but the CEOs have a responsibility to the stakeholders. So if this is going to help Meta make more money, and I know people could be like, how much more money does Zuckerberg need? How much more money does Tim Cook need? How much more money does all the CEOs who are there? How much more money? I get that, but they're doing their responsibility, okay? Because if they make more money, that means they're going to expand, and that means they're going to hire more people. I'm not going to get into the salary part because they said, well, if they're making, $500 billion and they can afford to pay that person who was making $20 an hour, they should double that. That part I'm not going to get into. But their goal is to is to serve their shareholders. And listen, some of those shareholders are their very own employees who have stock in the company through a 401k program, or, maybe they got an inheritance and they bought some shares of the stock. So technically, they're stakeholders as well. And if this is what they have to do to get a favorable rub from, policies and stuff, then so be it. And again, I'm not telling you how you should feel. This is just my opinion. I always say, if we were in that position, you don't know what you're going to do. If you're on the subway, you see somebody getting attacked, a lot of us would like to think that we would step in and intervene. But that might not be the case. A lot of us might just turn around, just mind our business, go someplace else. Some of us may not physically intervene, but we may call the cops. But if you were Mark Zuckerberg, it's like, okay, listen. And I'm not saying that the threats that Trump was doing didn't have anything to do with it as well. I mean, were they really going to be able to put this man in jail? No. In my opinion, no. But listen, if I could save myself the headache, fine. Now, again, it can be looked at as, well, they're just kissing his ass. Yeah. Now, me personally, I have a hard time doing that. But it's like, again, you don't know the situations, you don't know the circumstances. And they're trying to curry favor. Now, if it was a Democrat, they probably wouldn't have to have done that. Maybe they would have done it because it's like, okay, well, they're trying to come after us because they're trying to say we're responsible for certain things. It did not upset me. It didn't upset me that these guys were there. It just didn't. Again, did some of the bullying tactics on Trump's side help get them on the other side? Yes. But at the same time, it's like, well, listen, this man's going to be here for 4 years. Okay? You know, we're in the spotlight too much. If this is going to help take it off, fine. I mean, some of them may have begrudgingly have been there. I doubt that, but it is what it is. These guys did what they felt they had to do. And again, if we're in that situation and it's like, do we want to deal with constantly being hounded, always dragged through the mud, have all these investigations going on? Do we want this? Do I want to spend the time and the resources dealing with this shit, even though we're innocent? We go back to this thing where sometimes people will settle a lawsuit just to make it go away, and you know I would say continue to fight, knowing that but you have to think about the legal expenses, and sometimes you may not be able to afford that. And as much as you want to prove your innocence, do you want to put yourself in the poorhouse? And it sucks because it's like, I know I'm innocent, but it's like I can't afford to have a year-long court battle and pay these legal fees. I probably just get to settle just to make it go away, and I can be done with it faster. Sometimes that's what happens. So Trump 2.0 is here, and we're going to see how the stock market reacts tomorrow. I would expect it to be an up day. It's going to be a honeymoon period right now for Trump, but that honeymoon period is going to wear off because people are going to be like, okay, you promised to get my prices down, and Trump already started to backpedal on that a little bit. But at some point, it's not going to be Biden's fault anymore. You can't blame Biden anymore. Just like with Obama. After a while, you can't blame Bush anymore. It's yours now. And, with the whole COVID thing, after a while, you're in there, you can't blame Trump anymore. It's like you take over as a new CEO or the new CFO of a company and things were bad, but things haven't gotten better in the 8 months that you were there. It's like, listen, you've been here 8 months now. Maybe the first 3 or 4 months you were able to blame so and so, but as we're getting closer to a year and a half, this is on you now. You know what the problems were. Now you have to go and now fix them. And if the problems aren't getting fixed and things are getting better, well, that's you. That's not the previous guy. So Trump is going to get a honeymoon period. But of course, Trump is always going to blame Biden, but he's going to get the honeymoon period. But if things do not change within, a year, or some signs of things changing a year, that's going to be a big thing. Now, the first thing that we'll probably see the immediate impact on is him doing these raids and going after all the illegal immigrants. That we're probably going to see and feel more because, A, TV crews are going to be all over the place recording that, watching people being, dragged away in handcuffs probably. And we'll start probably hearing certain industries complaining, well, I lost a lot of my workers now because they all got arrested. So that I think we will see and feel the impact of that fairly quickly. But as far as energy prices and food prices and, buying a car or the price of a home and all that stuff coming down, that's not going to happen obviously this year. But we would expect him to start putting some things in place now. So we will feel it. And I'm sure a year from now, if people say, hey, eggs is still expensive, man, what's going on? You can't go back and blame Biden anymore because you said on day one, you got to sign all these executive orders, do all these things, hit the ground running right away. And if these policies aren't working, you can't blame Biden after that. Now it's you. But, he deserves to enjoy this day because, yeah, I think a lot of us thought this guy is down and out, but he made a true and yet historic comeback. I mean, it's fucking amazing that this guy is back in the White House. Okay, and and I say this, I've said this before. History repeats itself, and like Grover Cleveland, he had a term. He didn't get a consecutive second term. Somebody else was there. He came back. Same thing happened with him. And then even if you want to look at Trump in terms of being down and out, remember all the bankruptcy stuff that he went through was in the early '90s. All the bankruptcies, and they thought that he was done. And then he made a comeback with his businesses and becoming a TV star with The Apprentice. Like he made a good comeback. Now he was down and out again, thinking, okay, this is it. And then he rises back up again. I mean, it really is an amazing story. Despite how you feel about him and how he carries himself, it is an amazing story that this man has made this type of comeback. And I give Trump credit that he does give credit to those who have helped him. Now, you never know. He might turn on them later in the future. But listen, again, I think it was Mike Johnson. I can't remember who went down there to kiss the ring. Was it McCarthy? I guess McCarthy did go back. Yes, it was McCarthy. McCarthy did go back down there to pull him back. Yes, okay. So McCarthy. And, and then Trump kind of left him out there hanging when they kicked him out. But McCarthy is a big reason why he was brought back into the fold. And then ironic, McCarthy gets kicked out. But again, I know there are a lot of unhappy people and there are a lot of scared people right now. And there's a lot of elated and happy people right now. And do I think the country is going to unify together? No. I don't know who that great unifier is going to be, but it definitely wasn't Biden. It wasn't going to be Harris, and it's not going to be Trump. Some ways I think it can be Nikki Haley. I think she might be able to be the one to bring people back together, but I have no confidence that Trump is going to be able to bring the country together because Trump is too much tit for tat. And I think the Democrats are going to try to finally play a little dirty. And when I say that, it's like I use this example. When Mitch McConnell held up the Supreme Court nomination for Merrick Garland, if Chuck Schumer had the opportunity to do that, Schumer wouldn't take the opportunity to do it because Schumer would want to be above board and want to say, we stick with the tradition, we're going to do this. He wouldn't have held up that seat. Schumer wouldn't have done it. And while it pissed off a lot of people, McConnell didn't care because you know what? In his mind, it's like people are going to get over it. And McConnell has done a lot of shit that, he went back on his word or whatever. But people have forgotten about it. And that's why Republicans win more often than not because they are willing to bend the rules or just, I don't care if that's going to make people upset. This is what we have to do. Democrats don't want to be that. Democrats want to be that moral bar. And as much as I like Michelle Obama, when she says when they go low, you go high, sometimes you got to go lower. Excuse me. Sometimes you got to go lower. And I don't know how the Democrats are going to try to stonewall Trump, but I think with the Democrat Party and the supporters of the Democrats, I think they want to see them get tough. I think that's what they want to see. But don't try to do it in such a Trumpian way. Like when Marco Rubio tried to be like Trump, that didn't work. You can be like Trump without being Trump, if that makes sense. Excuse me. So, because Jeffries did not look happy at all during that entire, and even when Trump was signing those few things, Hakeem did not look happy at all. And what you Democrats need to do is not wait until it's time to start campaigning for the midterm elections. Start planning yourself. And see, that's why Trump was so smart. Because Trump continued to keep himself out there. Well, the media helped him with that too. But Trump kept doing those rallies. And he's probably going to continue to do the rallies, even though he's already president. He even did the rallies where he was president. You know, if I was Harris, if I was Buttigieg, if I was Hakeem or whatever, I would do rallies and keep a spotlight on the Trump administration and say, look what they're doing. Look at this. That's not, that's what you need to do. Trump did it. Trump knew how to grab onto an issue and just shove it down your throats. Democrats can't do that. They don't do that. That's what they need to do. Again, that's why today was the Trump inauguration. So, and, I know the comeback kid thing was for George H.W. Bush. Comeback kid is Donald Trump. And despite how you feel about him, despite the things that he has done, he deserves to be happy today. He deserves to have a smile on his face. Don Jr. probably had the biggest smile on his face. They deserve to celebrate because it was an amazing comeback. And yeah, is there any sort of punishment at the end for some of the things that Trump has done? Some will say yes, some will say no, but it's amazing. And he survived that assassination attempt. I mean, we could have watched him. You want to talk about history repeating itself? How we saw JFK get killed. We could have saw Trump get his brains blown out on TV if he hadn't turned to the side. So, yeah. He has been through a lot. A lot of it of his own making, yes. But he came out stronger than ever. Stronger than ever. And he deserves to take a victory lap. He does. No matter how you feel about him, you have to give the man his props. It was an amazing comeback story. And that's the thing, I don't know why he's Teflon. I don't know why things that would take down a normal politician I don't know why things just bounce off him. I don't know why. So many politicians have gotten swept out for less. But nothing seems to touch this guy. And I know one of the things that because he does talk to people, he talks to America like, not in the political terms. And he says things that people say at their kitchen tables about politicians, about the economy, whatever. Even though he's a billionaire, he's made himself relatable. Now, the oligarchy thing comment that Biden had made, it's kind of hard to take him a little seriously on that because do you think Republicans are the only ones who have rich donors that donate to them? Remember that debate, the second debate with Hillary and Trump. What did Trump say to her? Of course I've used the loopholes. Of course I used the laws to my advantage. But you know what? She's never going to change them because then it's going to hurt the donors that give money to her, and she's not going to piss off her donors. And her donors are rich people. So that wasn't the best statement to make when Biden said that in his address because both sides have their deep pockets who will pour money into them. Both sides have it. See, that's some of that selective thinking, selective memory that I mentioned at the beginning of this. So I don't know what's going to happen, but you have to be optimistic and hope. It's a new day. It's a new era. for these next 4 years, and we're going to see. And the Trumpism may continue past Trump because there is no doubt that J.D. Vance is going to run in 28. Is Nikki Haley going to make a resurgence? I don't know, because if things go well under Trump, there's no point in anybody trying to throw their hat in the ring other than Vance, because Vance is just going to be a continuation of what Trump did. And if the stuff works, are you going to mess with that? I don't know. So let's see what happens. But I'm hoping that here are the big things that I hope Trump tackles and can help fix. Definitely the prices, definitely immigration, but a little bit more than that because of personal experience. I really want him to help those who are affected by these natural disasters, because the bullshit that you have to go through to get help from your government. Like I said, those people, I mean, the city, the people, everything, it is going to be years before they get back to normal. It was several years before New Orleans, Louisiana, New Orleans got back to normal after Katrina. And it was Hollywood who did more than the government to help. Brad Pitt down there building these homes. Hollywood did more to help than the government. And we heard about how people had struggles getting their lives back together after Sandy happened, Hurricane Sandy in New York. And I can imagine what the people in North Carolina are going through right now. I'm sure the people, like I said, Palisades, Ohio, after that the toxic trade spill, I'm sure they're still suffering. The people who had the tornadoes, I'm sure they're still suffering right now. So I am hoping that Trump or Doge will cut some of the bullshit out, and that when somebody submits an application or a grant, it's not going to take 3 years to get approved or denied, to know which way it's going to go. That's ridiculous to know. And that is something that I'm hoping changes, because watching and listening to those people cry how their homes have burned down gets me teary-eyed, because I'm like, you guys think that's horrible? Wait until you try to get help from your government to put your life back together. That emotional roller coaster is gonna stress you out more than the fact that you lost your home, because now you're trying to put your home back together, and you got to deal with the nonsense and the stupid red tape, and try to find somebody, your representative, somebody to help you. When again, we send money to Ukraine, and I'm all for helping Ukraine. New York says, hey, I need, $20 million to help with, this overflow of the migrants. Oh, here you go. Oh, we got some migrants here. We're going to build the show. Oh, there you go. We want to give the migrants 100, what was it? They want to give them the Metro cards. Here you go. And then the bill that got vetoed in California, where they wanted to give $150,000 down payment assistance for the illegal immigrants to buy a house. Really? That's what I'm saying. You're willing to help other people, which again, I understand that's what the country is built to help, and I'm all for that. But you got to help your people first. So that is my optimism for this new administration, to do a better job. Do I think Biden had good intentions? Absolutely. I don't think, Biden's like, oh yeah, fucked up. No. Okay. And does every president have an ego? Yes. But do I think Biden really thought he was doing well? Yes. But I think his ego stopped him from doing better and realizing that some of the choices of the policies either wasn't working fast enough, or just wasn't a good idea. But I think Biden had good intentions. obviously. And I am hoping that Trump sticks to his word. This is not going to be a revenge tour, because you got the greatest revenge. You won. And you got a Supreme Court that pretty much gave you immunity from anything. So you have won. What is the point of going after people? Because let me tell you something. This will sting more. The fact that you are back in the White House, that is going to sting more than anything else you could possibly do. And the fact that they're living in fear now, wondering, is he really going to come after me? You won the psychological game. So focus on the country, focus on the people. And I say to everybody who is unhappy that this man won, give him a chance. I know you're going to say we've been through him already, but in some ways, not all, in some ways, this is a different Trump. In some ways. And let's see what happens. That's all you can do, is to see what happens. So that's going to be it for this edition of Broman with an Opinion on the Trump inauguration. And I want to talk about the pardons that Biden did. That's going to be the next episode that will be uploaded tonight. Again, please subscribe. Please leave me your opinions. Again, just please be respectful. And we will go down this journey together of Trump 2.0, and hope at the end of the journey we're better off. Let's see what happens. Take care.